Thank you, Chairman. And Mr. McGuinness, I'd like to thank you for responding to the request to have an open meeting to answer questions from members of the PAC. Unlike Deputy Harris, I'd like to preface my remarks by saying that, in my view, you've been an extraordinarily good chairman of the PAC, and there's been no indication of you holding back or any political bias. You've been an independent chairman, and I have no quarrel whatsoever with your tenure here at all. And I echo the point you made, and I think it's an interesting one, where you said that it would have been better if all these things had come out in hearings beforehand, rather than be coming out now. And I think this is a lesson which the PAC might learn, that when it's choosing its chairman in the future, and other Doyle committees as well, that it would be far more appropriate if there was not a adversarial session, but a session where those who wanted it could come before the committee and answer questions of this sort, rather than it break out in the press 2 years later. And indeed, the journalism involved in this, I think, has been quite excellent and laudable, and something which should have come out earlier. But what has happened as a result is that the Public Accounts Committee has willy-nilly become politicized. You as a member of a political party, me as an independent, the Taoiseach himself has become embroiled in this, and the PAC has been damaged. And there's no doubt whatsoever it's been damaged by the fact that people have been forced to take political positions on matters being discussed by a committee which has traditionally not been politically tinged. That has happened, and that is something which we're going to have to deal with, and it's deeply regrettable. I think the question, the nub of the question here is this. Over the three issues, which is your office, your son, and your wife, the McGuinness family seem to have done pretty well out of the state, out of the taxpayer, during the period in 2007. And the question we have to ask is whether that is consistent with the drive which you're leading and which the PAC leads to save as much public money as possible and make public officials as accountable as possible for their tenure, and ministers accountable as well. And I'd just like to ask you a few questions about that. I take your point about it being 5 or 6 years away, back 2007. I didn't quite understand your answer to Deputy Harris's and the Chairman's question about this. Is it unambiguously your view now that spouses should not travel at the expense of the taxpayer? Spouses of ministers. Can we just deal with that first?
I've said an answer to Deputy Harris. I think I've said an answer to Deputy Harris that it's clear that should a spouse be permitted to travel, that the minister must pay. And that's clear. I've said that the exceptional rule needs to be clarified where it's seriously exceptional. It's the Taoiseach that signs off on it. And in this day and age, that even in itself would not be acceptable. I gave myself as the example. I said if I were to sign off on it, would I? I probably wouldn't. But I believe that the exceptional nature needs to be established. I did not say at any stage, and did not mean at any stage, that there should be a carte blanche arrangement for anyone and everyone to go and travel. I don't agree with it.
But I mean, I have a view on this, and I could state that unambiguously. I don't think there are any circumstances, bar one or two specified ones. The Taoiseach would be one. I don't think any ministers should have any wives or any spouses of any sort travelling with them at the state's expense. I don't think there's justification for that. I think maybe the Taoiseach, in exceptional circumstances, should have that. I think the President probably should as well. But they're the only exceptions I can think of. And I'd include the Taoiseach. I don't see why the Taoiseach should have his wife travelling with him either. Would you agree with that?
I'm perfectly willing to accept that that's your opinion.
Is that yours?
My opinion slightly varies from that. Ministers should pay if their wives are going with them. There is no case to be made for a wife going on a trade mission. We've established all of that. In general terms, in accordance with this circular, it talks about a seriously exceptional position may be established. That is the only point I was making in 2007. And I've said to you already, if that were in today's terms, the answer would probably be no. That's a given. I can't be any clearer than that.
You could be more specific. In exceptional circumstances is pretty vague.
Well, in the interview I think that Deputy Harris talked about, I was talking in terms of the spouse of a minister travelling, where the minister would be asked to pay. And then I said, in exceptional circumstances, and I referred to that in the interview. And I gave the example of poor health on one side or the other. It may very well be that. I don't know. But that it was not for the minister to decide. It says here in some of these regulations, it is for somebody else to decide. It's an opinion. It doesn't affect the coffers of the state. It doesn't affect the view around this table and how we question ministers. In fact, we should all resign from the Dáil if we have opinions. Is that what you're saying? You have an opinion and I respect it. I have an opinion which varies only slightly from yours. Only slightly. I don't push it. And in these straitened terms I've already said to you, the answer would be no. It's an opinion.
I accept that.
I have many other opinions. I don't push them. And there are other opinions that I try to push.
Yeah, I accept that opinion. It's just important that the committee can establish that your opinions are consistent with the purpose of this committee, which is to save taxpayers' money. That's what I'm trying to establish.
Deputy Ross, I would have to say to you that you don't have to ask me that. You have sat there as a member of this committee since 2011. And you could easily establish, for my contribution to this committee, that the opinions that I have don't cause me any difficulty in undertaking my task as chairman of this committee. None whatsoever. I want to take you up on one point, if I may. You said that the McGuinness family did well. I reject that comment completely. You have no understanding of the contribution that we made. The payments I've already said to you in relation to my son were checked. He did the work. He worked in accordance with the rates. And if I had the same judgment now and could apply it back then, it would have been done differently. I think any of us can say that about anything that we do in life. You learn from experience, and you move on. You sometimes change your opinions and you move on, or you develop your opinions. But none of these matters that were put into the public domain or that are in discussion here today would mean that I did something wrong in the context of the state and how I was paid. And I don't think that you have anything to worry about in relation to my opinions and how I conduct this business here.
We've about, we'll say, about 6 people, so you can...
Okay, I'll try and...
I know I want to give you some latitude, but just you're aware of time constraints.
I'll move on from that. In my view, there are 2 elements to this. One is yourself and your position, and whether it's consistent with being a chairman of the PAC. The other is the strange way that this has come into the public arena. And I think there should not be criticism. As a journalist, I say this as someone with prejudice. There should be no criticism of a journalist pursuing a story like this with such determination. I think that's absolutely fair. Journalist is only as good as their source. What is interesting, and I'd be interested in your comments on it, because you said, I'm quoting from what you said just now, in answer to Deputy Harris, you said you spent some time wondering where it all came from. You said that.
Said what?
Spent some time wondering where it all came from. And there is a sort of consistency of bringing up matters which happened a long time ago, which seems to have developed a pattern. I would hate to think that they're all coming from a source that wishes particularly to damage you or the PAC. What's your view on where they come from? The information about, with the consistent information about the furnishing of your office, about your son, and about your wife.
Well, first of all, let me say that I have, and I've said this publicly on radio and when I'm interviewed about this, I have no difficulty with the media, any of them, television, radio, papers, using FOI to get information. I have no difficulty with that, and I never had. And I've never complained. I don't know where you've got that from.
I'm just quoting what you said. You said you've been wondering where it all came from.
That's not a criticism.
No, but what's your view of that?
No, I just want to correct you, because you can't be allowed to get away with remarks either. You might write about it on Sunday. So let me be clear to you. That was not a criticism. And I've told that to the journalist. I've told him he's there behind you. I told him he has to do his job. Let's not talk about him as if he was a shadow behind you there. He put in the FOIs. And he knows whether he has further FOIs in there or not. And he's only doing his job.
I met
him on Vincent Brown the other night. I shook his hand and on he went.
I'm not asking you about the journalist at all. I'm asking you if there's a pattern of this breaking into the public arena from someone with an agenda. I'm not asking about the
Chairman, you need to answer the questions that are put to you.
Yeah.
I appreciate there's a level of frustration, but you need to answer the question in succinct fashion, because there are many members that want to get in.
I do my best.
Well, as chair, you'll appreciate that. So whatever the questions that are put, maybe you just answer.
But the question he's putting is in relation to
he asked you a very direct
pattern.
question.
No, sorry.
He asked you a very direct question.
If you let me answer the question, I'll answer it.
I think it needs to be answered.
Yeah, I know it doesn't. That's what I'm going to try and do if you let me.
Yeah.
You're wondering, you said, no, I said, I was wondering where it all came from. I was referring to the information that came out after the FOI. So the FOI was asked, the information came out, As to why he asked the particular FOI, I don't know.
Do you
Was
think,
he prompted to do it by someone, I think is what you're asking me.
Correct, that's
or
what it is.
that's the area you're encouraging me to go into.
Yeah.
Maybe he was. I don't know. But now you're asking me to develop conspiracy theories. That's what you're asking me to do now.
I'm asking you.
And I'm here to answer about the information that these FOIs brought into the public domain. I'm not here to answer your questions about conspiracy theories.
I'm not asking about conspiracy theories. I'm asking you if you think there is a pattern of anybody trying to damage the PAC.
There is a pattern in putting this information into the public domain, which in the minds of some people leads, some members here, I think I've said it, leads to damaging the PAC. I can muse as to where that might be coming from. But then again, I'm entering into the conspiracy theory.
So you've no evidence that it's coming from any particular source or that there's any agenda there?
I'm not offering anything to this committee, only facts.
Okay, I'm finished.
And
I would say